Hello. We all need to survive, and this requires some financial means. But where for some reason, justifiable in law, one is unable to do so, the law requires that some other people connected to such persons make that kind of provision. Today on Law Express, we discuss maintenance. My name is Noella Seidu. We'll go for a quick commercial break. When we return, you will meet the other members of the panel for today's conversation. Stay tuned, don't go away. This is Law Express.
My mother passed on to me an age-old moisturizing secret handed down from generation to generation. Shea butter has been and still remains the ultimate and trusted natural product for the skin. It is safe for all, including newborns. I use Violon Shea butter products for my hair and skin and for all my children right from birth. Violon Shea butter is an amazing diaper cream. I love my family. That is why I trust only Violon Shea butter products for our skincare needs.
Violon Shea butter. Feed your skin right.
Courage Asabangna. Courage is a private legal practitioner and a law lecturer. He also likes to visit the beach, watch football, and he enjoys traveling. Vitus Bang. Vitus is a legal practitioner and a law lecturer. He enjoys traveling and watching sports. Noella Seidu. Noella is a private legal practitioner and a consistent member of our three-lawyer panel on the show. She plays a dual role as the host of the show and likes to play tennis and read.
Generally, when we talk about maintenance, we are looking at the need to provide the necessaries of life, education, shelter, and all of that to a person. So the person could be a child or a spouse in the marriage. Generally, that is what we mean when we talk about maintenance.
So you're looking at an amount of money paid to support a person connected to you. That could be your wife, your child, your husband, your parents, aged parents, and others, right?
That is so.
Yeah.
But it may not always be money provided.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be the provision of those things. For instance,
directly.
Directly. So if it's food, education, health, shelter. So it may not necessarily be the money itself.
But what buys these things or pays for these things?
Yeah, what pays for these things?
Bottom line is still money. You have to pay.
I think we are trying to look at issue of maintenance on one hand and issue of child support. Sometimes like trying to say provide some support, child support and all that. Sometimes it may comes in monetary terms and all that, but it still falls under the ambit of issues of what maintenance, because you are trying to provide that support in order to maintain the child, in order to provide the basic necessaries of life. It may be in health, education, shelter, and all that. And interestingly, if you look at shelter, if you look at the Constitution, emphasis is on reasonable shelter, and not just
any kind of
shelter, and that is even provided for under the Children's Act as well.
Yes, so, the right to education, right to maintenance, generally supplies of necessaries, health, life, reasonable shelter, and all of that. Yes. I think that when it comes to maintenance, people are always of the opinion that it's just about children.
If you're looking at the issues of maintenance, we should be able to at least know that it can relate to maintenance issues relating to a child and maintenance issues relating to what? A spouse.
Yes.
They are two different things.
There's this illusion or this assumption that it's usually women who apply for maintenance. Because now let's bring it home to the situation where there is some abandonment of the spouse or neglect of the spouse and children, for instance, or there are divorce proceedings underway, because it's usually in these circumstances that maintenance comes up, or the application for maintenance. I mean, when everything is fine and you are all playing your role, I don't think anybody would still go to court to apply for maintenance.
One may think that, or one may ask us, so if I'm not a spouse, it means that I'm staying with a man and I'm pregnant, I don't have any right to maintenance. But if you look at Article 27, emphasis is placed on the fact you need not be married to the person, because Article 27 makes it very clear in the sense that special care should be offered to the mother during pregnancy and after pregnancy. So during that period, if you think that you've been neglected by the man, you can bring an action by way of a petition for a maintenance order to be to be made to ensure that some reasonable provision or some maintenance order is being made to ensure that the child's safety, including you yourself, during pregnancy and even afterward pregnancy. So you may not necessarily be married to the person, but because you are expecting a child during
with
that period.
the person.
Yes.
So who qualifies? We've talked about somebody who is not married to the other, but is expecting a child, and because naturally or biologically it is women who carry, that means that women who are expecting can apply for maintenance from the father of the baby they're carrying.
Well, it is the joint responsibility of both parents to take care or provide the necessaries of life to a child that they give birth to. But apart from that, if the other spouse, for some reason, feels that you are not living up to your obligations as a spouse, he or she may take steps to apply for maintenance. So, and in many cases, it is the case that the one who is applying may be in a less, if you like, privileged financial position. But nothing stops the man too from applying if, looking at the totality of the circumstances, maybe looking at the earnings of the two people, maybe the woman earns more than the man. All right. So it is possible that a man can also apply for maintenance. But
so is it about who has more earning power, or it's about the joint responsibility to raise their children, such that if the one making the application is maybe a higher earner, but feels that you have failed, regardless of the fact that you also earn something substantial to play your role, does it just mean that, you will not be granted because you have enough money to take care of the child alone?
No. It is, as for taking care of the child, it is the joint responsibility of both parents. So even if one parent has more, the obligation is not placed solely on that parent to provide the necessaries of life for the child. But when we move beyond that to the parent, to a spouse, that is where we'll now be looking at the relative incomes of the people. And if we have a situation where maybe the man is less financially endowed and the woman is more financially endowed, it is possible that the man may be able to apply for maintenance. But as to whether the man may be willing to let go his ego to apply for maintenance is something else that we may need to look at.
Yeah, I agree with you, because if you look at the Matrimonial Causes Act, there's that emphasis that is placed on the court to ensure that they look at the standard of living of the parties and also their and also their circumstances in making that order. So if we find that one is in a well-placed position, then it means that in applying equity, that person will have a higher burden so far as the maintenance of that child is concerned, compared to somebody who is in a situation where he can't even take care of himself, and you burden that person with that order. But it still doesn't take away the fact that you still have to play
a role.
your role and all that.
I think this goes to say that it's not automatic that upon application you'll be granted, because your application will be looked at from the circumstances surrounding the whole arrangement, whether you're married, whether you are not married, whether you're pregnant, the ages of the kids. I want to believe there are many factors that inform the decision and the percentage of the burden that is imposed on every parent.
Yeah, exactly, because Section 22 of the Matrimonial Causes Act looks at several factors that the court has to consider in making such order.
I think we should explore those factors at this point since you've introduced it.
Yes, so the court has to inquire as to whether the child is living in any household and all that. The court has to take an initiative on an application to ensure that an order is being made to ensure that reasonable provision is made for the child that will be beneficial to the child and all that. So, and also to see if the child is in school, if there's any property out of which something can be sold and all that. So there are several factors that the court will consider in trying to make that order.
In addition to that, if you have a working mother who has to forego several hours of work in order to stay at home and to take care of the children at home, of course, that is going to ultimately affect the earning potential of that woman. So if you are asking that there be 50-50 contribution to the upkeep of the children, that may not be practicable under the circumstances. So the court will look at the totality of the circumstances, the earning potentials of both the man and the woman, what the needs are, because what may be required to maintain the home of Mr. A may not be the same as in the case of, let's say,
because
Mr.
the
B,
idea is that you don't want to
the standard of
alter
living
the
is not the same.
standard that the
Yes.
kids are adapted to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The standard of living is not the same. So the court will look at all of that in determining what the obligations of the parents are in terms of maintaining the child.
Yes.
And where a spouse is not within the control and care and control of the other spouse, the court will also look at that and see what are the peculiar circumstances of that other spouse who is not within the care and control of the other spouse in determining the extent of the obligation of the other spouse towards the one that has probably left the home. In issues of maintenance, it's a balancing act because we don't want, the state doesn't want to be the one to bear the responsibility of taking care of, let's say, children who are abandoned or spouses who are abandoned, because it will become a charge on the public purse. So as much as possible, the state wants to give these responsibilities to the natural parents or people who have the care and custody of these children, and then failing which the state may have to come in order to ensure that the necessaries of life of these people are provided for. This
is not to say that where parents still live together and perhaps one is derelicting on, the other party cannot go and apply, because most people think that it's only when there's a separation or a divorce that maintenance can be applied for. If the person has failed to perform his obligations, he's earning, and this is just a way of compelling him or her to make his contribution or her contribution to the upkeep of the children.
Indeed, that is very true. And indeed, the law criminalizes neglect of one's duties as a parent, for instance. So if you have your children and maybe the law sees that you are capable of, to some extent, of taking care of them, and you neglect them, you fail to provide the necessaries of life, accommodation, shelter, food, education, health, and all of that, the law may, in appropriate cases, penalize you for committing a crime. Again, the aim is to ensure that children who are largely vulnerable, they are provided for, and spouses in the marriage are also adequately provided for. So the law will go to that extent of punishing somebody who fails to honor his or her obligations if the other requirements of the law are met.
Who else can apply? Can we look at somebody who has custody of the children?
Definitely, we can look at somebody who has custody of the children, because it's not in every instance that natural parents of the child may be in custody of the child. And again, when we talk about children, the Children's Act defines a child to be a person below the age of 18 years. So which means that in special circumstances where somebody is probably above 18 years, but is still in school, for instance, needing assistance from the parents. I mean, the law should be able to provide for such a person. Otherwise, we'll be defeating the very purpose of the law. If the law ends at, the law says that a child is somebody who is below the age of 18. Now, somebody is 18, but has no ability to earn income of his or her own and is in school. How does such a person provide for him or herself without being a charge on the public purse? So this is something that we need to look at. So the child may, in appropriate cases, also apply through a next guardian ad litem, may apply for the
You have
maintenance.
to explain that further.
Yes. So sometimes a child may not be able to take action to enforce his or her right, but may do so through an adult person who has, for instance, custody of the child or some other legal right over the child. So such a person may stand in the stead of the child and apply for the necessary maintenance to be offered to such a child. Of course, speaking about biological parents, we have to envisage situations where adoption occurs. Adoption basically obliterates, extinguishes the rights of the biological parents. So if you become the adopted parent of a child, then it goes without saying that you have that obligation to provide for the necessaries of life for that child as though the child was your own child. And then in that kind of situation, the biological parents of the child, their obligation to take care of the child who has been adopted is now extinguished.
Can we talk about maintenance of the spouses, just spouses? Many a times, men are shy to apply for maintenance. For instance, you live in a home, you are the primary caregiver physically for the children because your wife probably is the busier one in a corporate space. She earns more money, but then she expects you to still figure out how to take care of all the necessaries required to take care of the child because it's assumed that that is a man's responsibility. So also when there are issues of divorce, hardly do you find men applying for maintenance pending divorce. And this is like money to keep body and soul together during the pendency of the proceedings, because sometimes from the date where the divorce petition is filed to the day that finally the court makes its declaration, it could be a long period. So assuming that the woman was the one who was taking care of the financial needs of the home, it means that you wouldn't have any money if you don't apply for such. Or, of course, unless the person herself voluntarily decides to keep supporting you throughout the period. So I know that you are men, but is this not something that, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it is not only gender specific. A man can also apply during a divorce for a maintenance order for his upkeep if the man finds himself in a situation that he can't maintain himself or even maintain the family, or even prior to the divorce, he was being maintained by the woman who is in a good financial position. It's just that we live in a setting that it will seem in a certain light to see a man bringing a petition for maintenance order.
Even when men counter petition for property, everybody goes like he has no shame.
Yeah,
He's trying to take the woman's
we need to be able to
money.
break those cultural, sociological barriers, because we need to sensitize men, everyone indeed, to know their rights, and then we need to stop discriminating or looking down on people, men, for instance, who apply for maintenance.
We'll go for a quick commercial break. But so far, it appears to be discussing this more in the context of the children. What if you've been married, you don't have children? Can the spouse still apply for maintenance? I think that we need to let people see that angle as well. So when we return from the break, we'll discuss that some more.
Yeah.
My mother passed on to me an age-old moisturizing secret handed down from generation to generation. Shea butter has been and still remains the ultimate and trusted natural product For the skin, it is safe for all, including newborns. I use Violon Shea Butter products for my hair and skin, and for all my children, right from birth. Violon Shea Butter is an amazing diaper cream. I love my family. That is why I trust only Violon Shea Butter products for our skincare needs.
Violon Shea Butter. Feed your skin right.
What category of persons are entitled to maintenance? Yes.
So let's start from where people are in a relationship and not married, or they are having a baby together.
Yes.
It doesn't even matter the status of the relationship.
Yes, it doesn't matter. Once you have a child or you're expecting a child,
Perfect.
any of the parties can bring a petition for what? A maintenance order to be made.
So once again, you've brought two categories together. So the first category, just for the benefit of our viewers, is a woman that is expecting a baby.
Exactly.
Now, you are not married to the father of this child, but by virtue of the fact that the baby is living inside you and you need care for antenatal, for medicals and other things,
Exactly.
even for nutrition,
Exactly.
you are allowed or permitted to apply for maintenance.
Exactly.
And you have to still go through the checklist in that, first of all, you shouldn't be capable yourself
Exactly.
to be able to get perhaps more.
Yeah. It doesn't even matter. It is possible that you are in a position to take good care of yourself and
Yeah.
your child, but again, you can still...
It's a shared responsibility.
It's shared responsibility.
So he has to pay his part.
Yes.
Okay.
He has to pay his part.
We can also talk about the category where they are not married, but this time it's not a pregnancy. The baby is here or the children are here.
Exactly.
So you're not married.
You're
It
not
doesn't
married.
matter that whether you live together or not. But now you have children between you. Okay?
Yes.
You are allowed to apply for maintenance,
Exactly.
either the man or the
Or-
woman.
Or the woman.
And that maintenance could be applied for yourself and the children, or for just the children.
For just the children, because
Yes.
you are not married. So he doesn't
Yeah.
owe you that responsibility or that obligation. It is in respect of the child
At that point.
at that point.
Yes.
Yes.
So I just needed us to make the difference. So you have children together, but you're not married. You apply for maintenance for the children.
Exactly.
You're pregnant, but you are not married. You apply for maintenance. It is for your child unborn. But because the child cannot spend that money, him or herself, you have to spend it, so the child gets the benefit of it.
Exactly.
So meaning it extinguishes right after the child is born, because then you can only apply for the child only.
No. If you look at Article 27, it operates in a manner that even after the child is born, during that period that you're taking care of the child and all that, you, the mother yourself, you have to be in a state that...
So you want her to now say, I'm breastfeeding, so I still have to
Exactly.
be maintained to be able to feed your child.
Exactly.
Okay, but what's the guarantee that she's actually breastfeeding and not just buying milk for the child? See, there are many ways. I mean, there are some mothers that, although it's not advised, they do not physically breastfeed, you know, in a biological manner.
Yeah,
they would buy formula, or for some reason they just can't.
The thing is that post-childbirth, a woman may need a lot of things that will impact on the health of the child, for instance.
Okay.
So if the man were to say that, oh, everything I give you only goes to the child, then it may not be, I mean, in the interest of the child even in the first place, because you need a healthy mother to be able to take care of a
So
healthy
when
child.
is the cutoff? At what point do you now say, I am paying only for the upkeep of the child?
A court of law will look at...
This is in the situation where you're not married.
Yes. A court of law will look at the totality of the circumstances and see what is a reasonable period post-birth and allow you to have, I mean, to be maintained within that period. But as for the child, all the way through, till the child becomes an adult.
But that also depends on whether you have the capacity to take care of yourself. You know, you don't want a situation where somebody has money, but is still just intentionally trying to drain a man because she has a newbie, a newborn baby.
It is also important for us to recognize that post the childbirth, the earning capacity of the woman may be reduced significantly. If the woman is not
that is an assumption.
Yeah, well,
some people,
if the woman is not in
do better.
Maybe not in the formal sector and probably has to, it's trading and probably immediately after childbirth, she cannot go to work. It means that in the meantime, her ability to earn income will be affected. So if the man were to say that I'm focusing only on my child, I think that would not be fair to the woman.
Is it practicable to give money to a mother and say, make sure every dime is spent on only the child?
No,
Can that happen?
It's not.
It doesn't look like it's practical.
Like when you buy the pizza for the child, you're not allowed to take a bite because this is from daddy's money.
It's not.
No, it's not practicable.
Because if you look at the legal framework, it is designed in such a way that even after birth, in order to enable the child realize his or her full potential, it is important that you still maintain the mother to a certain point that the child can still realize his or her full potential. So if the mother after birth and is left in a condition that if you do not take care of the mother, it means that it directly affects the upbringing of that child.
Especially where she has to stop work for the leave period, and
exactly.
if that period, it might affect maybe her side businesses.
Yeah, or it's even possible that after birth she finds herself in a medical condition that she has to be catered for. So you can't say, look, you've given birth, I'm taking care of my child. As for you, your hospital bills, I don't care. In such a situation, it will be difficult for the woman to take care of the child. So in a way, you have to put the woman in that position that will enable the child realize his or her full potential.
We haven't yet covered application of maintenance for people who are married, and then people who are married without children. So, but we sampled people's opinion on the streets regarding this topic. Let's take a listen, see what they have to say, and then we can continue to that part of the discussion.
Caretaking of children should be the responsibility of both parents, especially couples who are together. The job doesn't have to be neglected on one partner, especially men leaving the job to the women, because I'm sure both parents need to play a vital role in the upbringing of their children. And so if one person is absent, then that part of the job and the education, home education and the upbringing is absent in the life of the child, which may in the future have implications on the life of the child.
It is the responsibility of both parents to take care of their children, irrespective of their differences. And then I think from the side of the father's role, I think the father is not the only person who is supposed to take care of the child by himself all alone. It's supposed to be two-sided, so the mother comes in and then the father comes in as well, so that like the child can have attention from both parents.
It is the duty of both parents to take responsibility of their wards. I don't think it should be one-sided, as in only father maintaining their children, since it is both parties that have come together to give birth to them. It should be both parties that should take up the responsibility of maintaining their children.
The maintenance of the child should be the duty of both parents. Moreover, it is like on the father's side, it is actually huge, but then it should be from both parents. And then I think again, if the child is staying with a divorced parent, which is the dad, I think it is not actually right for him to seek maintenance from his ex-wife. But then I think it will actually be nice if the wife actually gives a helping hand, but then actually look so upset if he asks his ex-wife for help.
Feedback from the public, you realize that most of them are focusing on the parents, and all that. But in actual fact, it goes beyond just the parents. It's also a responsibility on any other person who is under a legal duty to maintain a child or to contribute towards the maintenance of a child.
Those were wonderful views out there, and it reflects the reality. Others of the view that it is not very okay for a man to apply for maintenance from an ex-wife, for instance.
It would be absurd.
It would be absurd. Yes, so that is the society that we are in. Other than that, a lot of people recognize that as parents, you have an obligation to provide for the necessaries of life for a child that you bring forth. And apart from, like my colleague has added, apart from the parents, any other person who has legal custody of the child, of course, is under an obligation to provide the necessaries of life for that child.
Yeah.
The best interest of the child is always paramount.
We're looking at the issue of maintenance in a marriage. We already said prior that you can still be in a marriage that is still happening and be compelled to apply for maintenance where one of the parties fails to fulfill their obligations to especially the children and also to you as a spouse. I think we should discuss that a bit further. So, because the assumption is that once you've gone to court to apply for this order, you are in essence trying to divorce your spouse. Yeah. But we have to let them know that divorce proceedings are separate from maintenance application.
You may have, let's say, a family where a parent who has a spouse who has an obligation towards maintaining the family fails or refuses to perform the obligation. And that may necessitate the other spouse bringing an application for maintenance for the care of the children and for herself or himself in the appropriate instance. So it is not out of place for a person to apply for maintenance whilst the marriage is still ongoing. Indeed, the law will not be very helpful if it only allowed for you to seek for maintenance when you are in a divorce proceeding. Whilst you are in the marriage, while you are stuck in the marriage.
Stuck.
Yes. You still
well, you're still in the marriage,
whilst
perhaps.
you are still in the marriage, perhaps. Yes, whilst you are still in the marriage, you need to be provided the necessaries of life. So it is important that the public understand this.
You make it sound like marriage is a chore. Like once you are in it, you're stuck in the marriage. Like
no, because the point I'm trying to make is that if the law says that whilst you are in a marriage, you cannot apply for maintenance, you can only apply for maintenance when you are in a divorce proceeding.
Yeah.
Then it will mean that the law is rather promoting divorces and discouraging marriages.
Well, I think that this especially comes to play where perhaps a man has multiple wives. Most of the times when the new blood comes into the equation, most people, not in every circumstance, is more likely to pay more attention to the new entrants and probably her children, neglecting or giving less attention and financial support to the first wife or older wives, whichever the case may be. It is not a situation of totally neglecting them in some instances. So you have wife A, you've been together for, let's say, 15 to 18 years. You bring in your fresh wife. She probably has her new kids. Wife A was used to some standard of living. You bring in wife B, and then you reduce the support you were giving to her and the wife A and her children, and then you kind of spoil wife B. So it's not like your capacity to provide has reduced, but then it's about your priorities. Who do you want to spend more on?
Well, that is interesting. if you take a look at, Muslim brothers who are allowed to, for instance, marry
even
more
in
than
customary
one,
marriages.
Yes, I know, but I'm just citing an example.
Oh,
I think
okay.
I believe that there is a condition precedent.
Okay,
to
equality.
marrying, that
yeah.
you should be able to treat all of them equally.
Yes.
And if you are not able to do that, and of course you should be able to provide for them.
That
and
is
if you are not
ideal.
able to provide for them, then you should not even go ahead to marry a second or
That
more
is
than
the ideal.
yes.
But you see, it is not a question of somebody not being able to provide. It is somebody shifting his attention and priority to the next person, to the neglect of the first.
So do I get the understanding that he has neglected the first one and he has now focused on the second one?
He's still married to the first.
Yes.
Same time as the second.
Exactly.
But then if he was giving her 5,000 cedis a month to take care of their kids, he's reduced it to 500 cedis and he's investing 10,000 a month on the new fresh wife.
So you are now talking about equality?
No, I'm talking about it in the context of the standard of living, because by so doing, you are likely to reduce the standard of living of your children with wife A. And I want to believe that she, if she can prove that you have the means, may be able to apply for maintenance.
I think the starting point will be, has he failed to provide the necessaries of life?
Yes.
Or is it that he has provided it, but it is not adequate?
See, when you look at the question of provision and adequacy or not, you have to also look at the person's means. This person has the same means. Yes. It's not that his business has suffered since he got married. Mm-hmm. He still has, probably he's even doing better. But he's decided that wife B, okay, has his heart at this point, and he wants her to be very comfortable. That is not a crime. That is not a problem. But the challenge is where you are now taking from wife A and the children to transfer to the other side. I think that she should be able to apply.
So my question then would be, okay, wife A, I've taken her children to, let's say, a school just around East Legon. Wife B, I've taken her children to a school in the UK.
Yes.
Are you going to make the argument that, or should the court make an order that I must put the children at the same level of education?
So this, once again, you don't get my point.
Yes, I want to get your
So the point is that it is not what you are given to the new wife simpliciter. No. It is the fact that you have actively reduced the standard of living of wife A and her children without cause. So if you want wife B's children to fly in a private jet to school every day, that is fine. But don't take wife A's Kia Cadenza from her and let them now take trotro to school. This is because in the interest of the child, you're not supposed to.
I think that in every such situation, the other spouse or the children will be able to apply for maintenance, because
I totally believe
reducing the standard of living of these people.
Is it that I have failed to provide maintenance?
No, we are not saying that you have failed to
have I provided reasonable?
So this is where it is.
Have I provided
by changing their standard of living, it's no longer reasonable because there's no justification whatsoever for reducing
the
their
fact
standards.
that I have reduced it doesn't make it unreasonable.
Well,
you used to stay in a 6-bedroom house, now I've made it 3-bedroom house.
That will be a matter for a court to interpret. But
exactly.
I sincerely think that whatever that you are doing, if your means, the resources that you have not reduced, and you are simply
the only reason is that somebody new has come. I think we have to take another break now. We have to take a break now. You need to hold it now. We'll come back to this. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break.
My mother passed on to me an age-old moisturizing secret handed down from generation to generation. Shea butter has been and still remains the ultimate and trusted natural product for the skin. It is safe for all, including newborns. I use Violon Shea butter products for my hair and skin, and for all my children right from birth. Violon Shabata is an amazing diaper cream. I love my family. That is why I trust only Violon Shabata products for our skincare needs.
Violon Shea Butter. Feed your skin right.
Hi, good evening, Nohela and your panel. My sister and her husband had an accident and both of them passed. They left 2 children behind. After the funeral, they gave me custody of the kids and the man's family promised to support me financially to cater for the children. They did some 3 months after the funeral and have stopped. I take care of everything. I am tired doing all that alone. Can I compel the man's family to help pay for the maintenance of the children?
The response to that question is that yes, he can still bring an application for a maintenance order to be made in respect of the man's estate. That's
and the woman as well,
yes,
because they both passed
yes.
on.
So the estate of the mother and the father for a reasonable provision to be made in order to meet his needs. So, because if you look at the Wills Act, Section 13 actually allows that an application can be brought where a testator doing his...
You're speaking too much law, you need to...
Yeah, so for instance, Section 13 basically operates on the premise that where somebody dies without making a will, or somebody dies and he made a will and didn't make a reasonable provision for the maintenance of a child, a mother, or a father, that person or a spouse, they can bring an application before the court, and the court will make sure that reasonable provision is being made outside a reasonable provision is made from the estate of the deceased person, that is the testator, to meet the needs of the person, and that person can be a child or a spouse.
So this is one of the exceptional cases where the courts actually go beyond the wishes of the person who made the will.
Exactly.
He's made a will, but he did not include a child that he has. That is a person under 18 years old.
Yes.
He did not include his wife. He did not include his aged parents, perhaps. These people are allowed to come and show a reason why they have to be taken care of,
yes,
from the property that the person has left behind.
Yes, and
so
you see, it does not only apply where the person failed to include. It is possible that you've included them, but
it's
reasonable
not enough.
provision wasn't made
yes,
for them.
Yeah.
And by reason of that, they can bring an application for the court to make an order for provision to be made for them. So
when somebody dies without making a will, also, I mean, the PNGC Law 111
yes,
tells you how the person's estate should be handled.
Yes.
So that law naturally would include children, spouses, even the extended family. So if, for instance, like in this case, I want to believe that from the question, there was no will because I don't think he mentioned, she mentioned a will.
Yeah, but again, even Section 13 still deals with it because it says
absolutely
that the testator's during the testator's lifetime, if he did not make reasonable provision.
I actually also wanted to ask about the assumptions that we are making, because the question did not tell us whether the man left any, or the parents left
even
any property behind.
Yeah, maybe they left debts.
Yes, maybe they left debts. And that brings to the fore a very important issue, the role of the extended family in all of this.
Yeah.
It would then mean that people who have custody of these children will have the obligation of providing the necessaries of life for these people. So the questioner may also be under an obligation to provide these necessaries for the child.
I believe that at custom, we are all obligated to support the extended family. I mean, this has always been the position, and customary law is part of our laws in Ghana. So if, for instance, this person left just debts, and relatives, from that extended family bit who are capable should be able to step up to support.
who are capable.
Who are
That's very
capable.
important.
I mean, if you're already limping, how do you now support somebody to stand? But I mean, it's also, I just feel like it's a moral obligation on people. You shouldn't just look at them. I mean, those are minors and they are orphans. So naturally, should be, especially if you could have inherited from that person's estate had he had money and had died intestate.
And that also brings to the fore the social support system that we have. I mean, welfare, if we have enough welfare packages for people of this caliber, they may be able to apply to them, and then the state may be able to support them in one way or the other, at least until they find their feet.
Let's check out the second question.
Hi, my name is James. My wife and I separated about 2 years ago after a fight. We were never officially married, but we were living together. We have a 9-year-old girl who lives with me. I have lost my job and struggle to take care of myself and the child. My ex-girlfriend is now married to another man and doing very well financially. All effort to get her to support the upkeep of the child has proved futile. Can I compel her legally to support me?
I think this is a very interesting question. First of all, they were not married. So who does he need support for? Is it himself or the child?
I think
the child.
He needs support
for the child.
Great. And I think it's straightforward.
Yes.
He can apply for maintenance. He says that the woman is doing well. We hope it's her money and not her new husband's money. And then, once she has the means, she has to. I think it's something that he needs to discuss with a lawyer. And then the necessary processes can be put in place.
And the woman doesn't have to necessarily take custody of the child.
Yes.
Unless it is in the best interest of the child for her to keep custody of the child.
But this woman has left this 9-year-old child with him the whole time. She clearly is not interested. And since you are willing, I don't see why you should force custody on
him.
Yeah, but
on her.
it's also possible that from what the man has just mentioned or said, it means that he's not ready to take custody or to keep custody of the child. So he wants to push custody to...
He wants to offload their child.
Yes, because you can see that there's somebody who is struggling himself.
Well, it depends on how long he's been living with this child, because the court would not naturally want to change the person's environment that easily. And though we are not discussing custody, I mean, the truth is the court would be reluctant to change that child's environment and put her in a new, strange space with a new stepfather, and I think
especially when the mother is not willing.
She hasn't made any efforts, which is a bit odd, if you know, I may add. So I think the best route probably is to just apply for maintenance, get financial support, and continue to do the Lord's work in the life of this child.
That's right.
It's been another interesting and engaging conversation. Thank you so much, Lawyer Courage Asabagna and Vitus Bang. Lawyers, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us on Law Express. We're always happy to have you. My name is Noella Seidu. This is Law Express. We've come to the end of our show for today. And the conversation on maintenance will keep going because, I mean, with our limited time, we could never cover every aspect of it. But it's important that having children or being in some civil relationships with others come with some responsibilities that you could never shake off. Being a parent, being a spouse, is one that comes with enormous responsibilities. And it's important that everybody steps up or the law will compel you to do the same. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.